Hello and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. Pakistan and India have stepped back from a war, but just barely. It was a US brokered ceasefire between Pakistan and India, but when we take a look at the trust, there is nowhere, it is nowhere to be seen. And in a dangerous move, India has suspended the Indus Waters Treaty. And this was the treaty and a water sharing agreement that has survived wars for 6 decades between both the countries. Pakistan calls this an act of war because it threatens our farms, our power and our future. But this is not only problem that is creating tensions between Pakistan and India. There are also threats emanating from Afghan soil. And of course, India is accused of using militant groups under Taliban protection to destabilize Pakistan. In today's program, we will be taking a look at Indus Waters Treaty and what needs to be done when we talk about de-escalation between Pakistan and India, how fragile is the ceasefire between both the countries, and also the use of proxies against Pakistan by India. And is the region heading towards lasting peace, or we are at the edge of another war? And when we talk about this war, this would be in the form of proxies and water threats. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Makhdoom Babar. Welcome to the program. Mr. Makhdoom is a journalist. We're also joined by Ms. Komal Kineth, who is economist and analyst. Welcome to the program. Mr. Babar, let me start with you. When we look at this ceasefire, how do you look at it, especially in the light of and in the context of the threats that are being given constantly by India post Pahalgam? Because the very next day, without providing any evidence, of course, we know that India announced that it holds Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. What's your take on this?
Thank you very much. First of all, talking about the ceasefire. I think the ceasefire has no threat because it was not Pakistan, and that was the aggressor. Pakistan was defending, and the ceasefire request came from the other side, and international leaders have confirmed now that India approached the US to ensure a ceasefire. So I don't think ceasefire is in any jeopardy, because the aggressor agreeing to or requesting for ceasefire, it means that he does not hold any intention to go for it again. Who will they ask again to ensure a ceasefire? The threats, pre-Pahalgam, post-Pahalgam, whatever, nobody has believed India that whatever they were claiming about Pahalgam terror drama had any reality in that. In fact, recently I think British foreign minister who was visiting Pakistan and India, he has also stated that India has not shared any evidence about that Pahalgam incident. And I've also heard some of the Indian minister now saying that the investigations are on.
Yes.
In Pahalgam incident.
Ministry of Interior.
Yeah, and we will discuss it with you later.
And so Ministry of External Affairs as well.
Your investigations are still on, and you just carried an attack on Pakistan under the pretext of the incident, which is yet to be investigated. I think they have lost their
So of course, you have raised very valid point. Mr. Babar, do you identify some kind of template when it comes to Narendra Modi's government to taking such kind of decisions that there is attack anywhere in India for that matter, and the finger points towards Pakistan without providing any evidence?
Well, and in fact, after Prime Minister Modi's arrival on the scene as Prime Minister, these things have increased, but there is a long history of BJP organizing it. BJP established a Hindu extremist network within Indian Army, there was, they are doing it, the terrorism, sponsoring terrorism training since 1980s. There was an affidavit presented before Jain Commission and Indian Judicial Commission under Justice Jain, who was probing the assassination of former Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, in which the Indian Prime Minister at that time confirmed that they were officially training Tamil terrorists. And one of the affidavits that was submitted by former Indian Foreign Secretary Salman Haider, affidavit number in Jain Commission was 434/96 JCI, in which he said that after, on the request of Bharkaran, the terrorist leader in Sri Lanka, Indira Gandhi then handed over this responsibility of training terrorists to Intelligence Bureau, taking it from RAW, though she had much interest in RAW. And there was another affidavit by the secretary, private secretary to former advisor to Mrs. Gandhi, Mr. K. Mohandas. His affidavit number was 64/92 JCI, who made the biggest disclosure that apart from giving the Prime Minister in his affidavit, he just restrained from giving the names of the location where terrorists were being trained by India. But this advisor, Mr. Mohan, he, even gave the location, and the most sensational disclosure made by him was that the terrorists were even being trained at Indian Military Academy of Dehradun. So, they have the history of training terrorists at their prime military institutes. Institutions,
of course,
like,
and now the world has also seen state-sponsored terrorism of India. We'll be talking about that. But Komal, when we look at the recent incidents and the fragile ceasefire, although both countries say that, of course, this has no expiry date, despite some of the reports emerging that this has a set ceasefire is going to be ending at 18th May, and some other reports suggested otherwise. But we know for a fact that this does not have an expiry date. But at the same time, when we look at aggression of India and the speech that was made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that blood and water cannot flow together, do you think that India's aggression post Pahalgam and post May 10th is moving from kinetic aggression now towards water aggression or hydro aggression?
Thank you, Mariam, for having me, first of all. As an economist, I would probably be biased in looking at this whole situation from a very economic lens, from a very, I would like to use maybe the Nash equilibrium to understand what the incentives for this would be and how these outcomes or the benefits that each party would get or the losses that each party would get would be sustained. So there has been an equilibrium in the region so far, which has somehow been shifted unprecedentedly. India has done, or the actions that we are now seeing in the wake of the recent war, this was not imaginable, given that the two countries are nuclear powers, and it does not make economic sense on either side.
It's unprecedented.
It is
after
unprecedented.
20 years,
Exactly.
Both countries came face to face.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and this was not imaginable in the economic sense. So even as an economist, I would not have predicted an escalation to this level. So now that the new normal has been set, anything can be expected. I am not saying that the ceasefire is going to be violated, but it is definitely, like you said, very rightly pointed out, it is very fragile. And therefore, there is a lot of international pressure right now on India. Pakistan has emerged as somewhat of a victor in the war, and somewhat in a very in an elegant position, I must say. Our media has handled things very well, our armed forces have handled things very well. So overall, the picture that Pakistan is now presenting to the world is very balanced and very nuanced, whereas India has emerged as a player that cannot be trusted, and therefore there might be economic repercussions for this. So for example, Trump has announced that there will be no trade Apple will not be conducting any kind of sales or transactional relationship with India, then we can see the regional players stepping up. China's position is very clear right now, both in economic terms, both in defense and political diplomacy and economic diplomacy. We see the support from the US actually also in a very unprecedented manner. So if we analyze the language around it, we analyze what is happening in terms of the economic relationships that are emerging very quickly, I think the ceasefire will stay. If India is to reasonably and intelligently participate in the international polity, then they must abide by the rules of governance or international governance. But given that this has been unprecedented as well, that state has become very unpredictable. So therefore, anything at this point, we can only conjecture, we can only extrapolate, but nothing is for certain.
And the situation is very fluid at this point in time, and we have to see that. To talk more about this, we are now joined online by Dr. Yasir Masood, who is Foreign Affairs Analyst. Welcome to the program, Dr. Yasir. When we talk about this fragile ceasefire between Pakistan and India that was brokered by US and of course other players as well, what's your take on this, especially post May 10th, when we look at PM Modi's speech that blood and water cannot flow together? How do you think that is he trying to change rhetoric from military aggression towards hydrological coercion in the region? And what's your take on this, that how should Pakistan be responding? Because this is an act of war as Pakistan is considering it.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, Mariam. I think it's a very important and a pertinent question, considering the fact that although there is a ceasefire, but we call it as still we are working on the eggshells because of the nature of the conflict or because of the rhetoric which is emanating from India and especially from the Prime Minister of India. Let me tell you that right now why he is changing this rhetoric, because I think he got a bloody nose, not only himself, but the entire India, the way Pakistan has stood against the Indian bullying. I think this is one of the epitome for the rest of the states, especially the weaker states. Pakistan has given such a great example that how to stand against Indian aggression, how to stand against undue bullying. So I think he is looking for a rhetoric to have his own face saving domestically, because, you know, starting from the Pahalgam attack and then Operation Sindoor and then Bunyan al-Masroor, I think the main reason was to have a domestic standing in India, because as you know, the Indian politics is unfortunately, it's BJP party is far right, extremist, jingoist party, and also an extremist terrorist party. That's why, you know, whenever they have a weak footing inside India, their politics is based on
Dr. Yasir, how do you see that Modi is trying to weaponize water, because we know that both countries have had their ups and downs, they went to wars as well, but this treaty remains untouched until now. And when we look at some official and unofficial reports and documentations, there are official claims and plans that aim to extend the 19th century Ranbir Canal on Chenab. What would be downstream impact on Punjab's irrigation that of course feeds 80% of Pakistan's agrarian output?
Yeah, I was coming to your question actually, but just wanted to give a bit of background. So after the ceasefire, I see that it is still a blatant aggression from India, and Pakistan has very categorically and clearly said that Pakistan's national security has already said that any act of this kind would be considered an act of war. So I think where do we lack? I think if you go on Google, if you go on YouTube, there are a plethora of, rhetorics coming from Indian media. For example, they're saying that Pakistan is begging for water, Pakistan is crying for water. So I think this kind of rhetoric which is coming from India, we need to amplify our position, not only domestically, but also at the international podium and platforms. But India, if if India is up to this kind of aggression even in the future, we are absolutely ready for it. As far as the regional security is concerned, it will have its horrendous implication. Let me tell you that the World Bank president just a couple of days ago, Mr. Ajay Banga, clearly said that the Indus Waters Treaty cannot be unilaterally suspended or altered, even by India or even by Pakistan. But, India is a friend of Israel. It doesn't any matter to India whether, they do not have any respect for bilateral agreements, for trilateral agreements, or even for unilateral agreements. Let me also tell you that India trying to portray this time and again that this is a bilateral agreement, whereas World Bank is clearly party to this because it was brokered by the World Bank.
Yeah,
So I
and
think
that's
on
my
the
next
international
question.
platform.
Right, and that's my next question to you, Dr. Yasir, that of course being a World Bank as guarantor of this treaty, can Pakistan go to World Bank at this point in time? Like, what are the legal options available to Pakistan? As per international law, the bank can appoint, of course, neutral experts or convene a court of arbitration as well. So, what should Pakistan do immediately?
Immediately, what Pakistan needs to do is exactly replicate the same what India did. They have made a consortium, a group of certain top diplomats, and they're sending around the world to strengthen and amplify their position and their narrative. And that's what I was mentioning to earlier, that Pakistan needs to do this domestically and as well as internationally. What we can do regarding the Indus Water Treaty? It's a good question. To begin with, I think there has to be a diplomatic offensive on part of Pakistan. Pakistan needs to elevate this crisis at the United Nations, at the OIC, at the SCO, at the G20, even at the World Bank, and maybe can garner or gather more guarantors to this kind of Indian aggression, because it's a blatant act of violation of international norms and international law. Then I think Pakistan has the choice of taking a legal action and lawfare. Maybe Pakistan can initiate a kind of arbitration under the treaty's dispute resolution clauses. Maybe Pakistan can use Article 60 of the Vienna Convention to challenge this fundamental change of circumstances that India claims. But it's in reality, it's self-declares to exist. Pakistan can also leverage global courts and UN treaty depositories to expose India's blatant hypocrisy. At the same time, in the long term, what Pakistan can do is that it can strengthen its domestic resilience and infrastructure, because India cannot do that. Let's, for example, after a month or after even years, it will take time because India lacks the infrastructure. It takes time. India lacks the, right now, the will. So Pakistan has this buffer time. So I think this tactical buffer time.
Right, of course, that remains an important point, of course. But let me bring in Mr. Babar to the discussion. Mr. Babar, when we look at Indus Water Treaty and when India held it in abeyance, we saw that there was a 90% drop at a key Pakistani intake when India conducted a routine maintenance. So, what's your take on that regarding the legal avenues that Pakistan should be going towards? Especially, of course, a lot of avenues Dr. Yasir also alluded to. But what about ICJ? Can Pakistan involve ICJ at this point in time? Because it is an act of war and it is a human rights violation as well, when we talk about legally depriving 250 million plus people of their right to water security.
Well, first of all, in my opinion, Indus Water Treaty under the Indus Water Commission was already, made dead by India. They were not following the treaty at all, and it was time that it should be done again. And according to the World Bank is a facilitator, and there is a clause in this Indus Water Treaty that if there is a problem between two parties, they should bring it to World Bank, and World Bank will fix a 7-member arbitration court which will decide. So I think first thing is that we should, before going to ICJ or any other forum, World Bank, we should be asking them to fix an arbitration court, and that should decide. And remember one thing, what is Pakistan's foreign debt? It's $130 billion something. India's foreign debt is $717 billion, and major chunk is coming from World Bank. So it is not that India can show that arrogance to World Bank if they...
But at the same time, what could be likely procedural hurdles when it comes to Pakistan going to these other legal avenues as well as the World Bank, which is the facilitator?
The World Bank is the first legal avenue. You have to ask them to fix a court of arbitrators, and then you can go to other forums like whatever they
Vienna
are dealing
Convention,
with.
ICJ.
This is very interesting to see that how much terrorism has come to Pakistan from Afghan soil. But never we stopped sending them food supplies, never they stopped Kabul River or anything. It's all over in the world. Nobody does that. Only Israelis are doing it to Gaza, innocent Gaza people, that they are stopping their food supplies and water supplies and all that. And Indians are trying to copy them. They cannot do it. Immediately, they do not have the reservoirs to hold that water that is flowing to Pakistan. But the thing is that they have plan of 24 project on Chenab River, 52 on Jhelum, 24 on Indus. Their future plans, some of them are already in progress, and the things started worsening after they started work on Kishan Ganga and later on Belga. So we need to sit at some arbitration platform, and we should fix. We do not have an immediate threat, but we need to clear it for once and all, so that the generations should not be suffering. The local government, the current government is wise enough that they are not looking at their term or theirs. They are trying to go for. I have heard the statement by an army spokesman. He has also said that no one can tolerate it. If you 250 people water supply is suspended, you're not trying to starve a nation.
Of
It's
course,
not humanitarian issue, and that what they are saying that blood and water cannot flow. This is already flowing. The waters coming from occupied Kashmir area are already bringing the blood of innocent Kashmiri people from there. So they are already, bleeding the blood and water together. We don't agree to their stances on those water projects that they have started there, and that is why I think our parliamentary delegations that are going to different countries, they should be picking up these 3 issues more accurately, including the terrorism. We have truckloads of evidences. Not only we have their own ministers and the national security advisor type, their ministers have admitted killing people in Pakistan. Rajnath has admitted. Their national security advisor has announced an offensive defensive doctrine. Chuck Hagel, former US Defense Secretary, has said that India should stop using Afghan soil for terrorism against Pakistan. There are loads of that. They have not given a single evidence about the battleground.
Of course.
We should be taking up terrorism matter. We should be taking up water terrorism by India, and we should
Kashmir,
also be.
of course. Let me bring in Komal. Komal, of course, a lot of valid points raised by Mr. Babar, and without any shred of evidence, India pointed a finger towards Pakistan. While when we look in the, not many days ago, there was Jafar Express, a huge incident, and all the fingerprints of India was all over that incident, but still Pakistan showed a lot of restraint. But coming back to Indus Waters Treaty and the point that Dr. Yasser earlier mentioned about the Vienna Convention and Article 60 and 62, What's your take on that? That what kind of material damage that Pakistan could claim when it comes to it, and is it actually feasible, keeping in mind the kind of structure at multilateral fora we are witnessing at this point in time?
Thank you for your question. Excellent question. I'd come straight to the point on damages. So, widely known fact, Pakistan is an agricultural economy. More than 80% of our workforce is also employed here. So, rightly said by our leadership, by the way, that this is anything to do with water warfare is definitely going to be an act of war, because this is not just going to be an economic war, it's a human rights violation. It is going to affect Pakistan's trade as well. Already 40% of the crops are damaged because of the reduced usage of water by Pakistan because of the blockage in India. So this is going to be massive if this continues. Even in the short run, yes, we can understand that if we're living in a regional political situation, there is a risk of prolonging this strategy because China is upstream. There could be retaliation from China. There could be regional, not just economic losses, but of course, as we understand, security issues as well. So the economic loss or the damage caused by this is going to be far bigger than we can anticipate in terms of Pakistan's economy. So therefore, Pakistan is in a very good strategic position right now to appeal on two grounds. Firstly, that this is the world is so closely connected that if Pakistan suffers economic losses due to its agriculture base, and then the textile and basmati rice
So we could
export,
actually allege material breach.
we can, yes,
Okay.
definitely. So this is it has to be a two-pronged approach, grounded in violation of human rights, because if crop cycles are disrupted, it causes massive food insecurity. We've done, as economists, we do these studies and we create these anticipatory action frameworks where we can predict if there is an economic crisis or if there is a climate change crisis, how that can actually spur an economic crisis as well. So this is not even a natural disaster. This is a orchestrated disaster that is going to disrupt crop cycles, that is going to disrupt livelihoods. So multiplier effect on economic damages. So Pakistan is in a very strong position to claim or have a two-pronged strategy when they go to the international community at different forums, that this is not just a human rights violation, it is because it's a food insecurity violation, but also because this is an economic war then, and you are making Pakistan suffer strategically in terms of their economic advantages.
Right.
So, yeah.
Of course, we are in a very good position. Dr. Yasser, what's your take on that firstly? And also, like our guests in the studios mentioned about the statements of DG ISPR as well, who said that, of course, this is an act of war. But coming to towards Pakistan allies and friends, do you think Pakistan could leverage its friendship or relationship with China when we talk about water agreements, because Beijing controls the Indus headquarters in Tibet and could threaten similar tactics via Brahmaputra. So do you think Pakistan could do something like that?
Well, absolutely. I think the way China has stood even in this conflict with Pakistan has set a very good example. And I think when it comes to economic coercion or water terrorism or water blackmailing, the way India is aiming for, so I think eventually China has to jump in, because at the end of the day, regardless of the fact that India portrays it or try to give an impression that it's a bilateral agreement and has the right to unilaterally abrogate it, suspend it, I think the international players has to come in. Otherwise, the bigger problem it will create, it will set a very wrong precedent level and also at the global level, that any country tomorrow can have can suspend this kind of bilateral, multilateral treatments and agreements. This happens all over the world. The world buys this kind of agreements over the years. And I think Pakistan has to, win this case at international fora. just not only because it will create a humanitarian crisis inside Pakistan, but also to teach India a good lesson that this is not how the responsible states react. This is not how a so-called biggest democracy of the world treats another nation and its neighbor. I would say that we are very unfortunate to have a neighbor like India, especially with people who have Hindutva mindset at the helm of affairs. You know, why India blinks at the Kashmir issue? Because you see, the nub of the problem is the Kashmir dispute. But India doesn't want to talk about it, but instead wants to talk about terrorism. Fine, Pakistan is ready to do that. Look at, you just mentioned about the Jafar Express train accident. We have the evidences, we have the proofs that India is fomenting extremism, terrorism, militancy in Pakistan. So let's talk about it. Let's let the world realize that what India is doing in Pakistan. So I think these are some of the very core issues.
Right, and since you mentioned about terrorism, let's turn to that dimension as well, because there is a growing discourse that India is sponsoring anti-Pakistan proxies in Afghanistan, and of course we are witnessing close ties between both the countries. What's your take on that? Post Pahalgam, do you think there is going to be more proxies or secret attacks emerging or emanating from Afghanistan within Pakistan?
I think yes, because this is the kind of hybrid warfare which India has initiated in Pakistan for the last at least 3 decades, I would say. And why India is doing that? There is not a madness only, but there is a method as well when it comes to BJP's calculation against Pakistan. Because, Pakistan unfortunately remained under the ambit of geopolitical and geostrategic compulsions, wantingly or unwantingly. I would like to take you back to the time of Cold War, then 9/11, then afterwards, Pakistan sacrificed more than 80,000 people. Pakistan has sacrificed, lost 130 billion of economy. Pakistan has lost the geo-economic policies and also collateral damages aside. Why India wants to do this? Because India wants to portray and wants to convince to the rest of the world Pakistan is not a safe destination for investment. That is the ultimate objective. So I see that India would try to foment more extremism, aggression through its proxies like BLA, like TTP, with the love affair they have found again with the Afghanistan Taliban. I think with this kind of proxy, they will try to trigger this kind of insurgency in Pakistan, but Pakistani military forces are ready. And I think with the alliance of China, because that the ultimate objective is also to dismantle the China-Pakistan economic corridor, the Belt and Road Initiative in the bigger picture. So I think all these policy calculations are in Pakistan's mind as well. And I think we will retaliate whatever come, in terms of Indian aggression, be in terms of hybrid warfare, be in terms of economic coercion, be in terms of water terrorism. I think Pakistan is ready with all its manifestation.
Right, right. And Mr. Babar, when we look at the situation, especially post Pahalgam, there was, of course, kind of unprecedented support from Taliban to India. In your opinion, what kind of message it gives to Islamabad? And also, since Mr. Dar is visiting China today, and of course, Pakistan, China and Afghanistan are going to be holding meeting, what should be Pakistan's stand? What should be our expectations from this visit?
Well, before coming to this question, I would like to tell you a brief interesting fact that I did my national security course at National Defense University in 2004-2005, and during the end of that course, the National Defense University gave the participants this very scenario that we are facing today regarding water with India. And I cannot disclose what were the solutions, but believe you me, Army was looking at it since 2004-2005, and they had even then created a very befitting response to any such situation, plus if naval blockade is carried out at Karachi port or anywhere. Now coming to the Taliban, I don't know why Taliban are showing so much love to India, because India has been doing everything to eliminate them during last 20 years when they had their consulates in 10 places in Afghanistan during Ashraf Ghani government and during Karzai government, and they were joining hands with elements like those factions who were going on against Taliban. But only thing that emerges out of this is that there is 27 heroin producing factories in Afghanistan still producing heroin, and with Indians having huge chunk of share in those factories. So I think China has very timely called Afghan ministers and Pakistani, and I think they are going to pull their ears also. And I think Pakistan and China have now clear right, if Afghans cannot dismantle those drug heavens inside Afghanistan, Pakistan has all the right, and China also has all the right to carry out surgical strike to those drug factories, because drugs are the basic source of terrorism. It has been confirmed by many times on record by US, several US presidents, and NATO and ISAF were saying this is not our mandate to destroy
and also
the
we
drug
cannot
industry.
forget the weaponization of Afghan society.
Yes,
that is
the
leading
root
to
cause
the
of
terrorist
terrorism.
attack in
This is producing financial for terrorism, these drugs are producing.
right.
And that is apparently the only link between them. And as far as they're producing, even today, you just said proxies, even today we had, last night we had, today saw the pictures, news about bomb blasts in Balochistan. Again, the proxies are very much intact.
Active, yeah.
And with the new spirit. But my biggest fear is they are going to have a new false flag operation inside India, and this time after we will move forward on this water dispute and we will start getting world sport, they will be blowing some small water dam inside India. And under that false flag they will again sabotage the water talks, and this should be on record that their next false flag could be sabotage on some of their small scale dams in IIOJK or anywhere else in India.
Right. So at this point in time, like we started earlier, that this ceasefire remain very fragile. Lastly, Komal, when we talk about, of course, Indus Waters Treaty and these proxies, and in the context of climate crisis and geopolitical competition, how could Pakistan place water at the forefront of its, not only its foreign policy, but its military policy and military offensive as well?
A very interesting question. There is no straightforward answer to this, but generally we have to, this is unprecedented, like we said. This is not part of what Pakistan was foreseeing as its trajectory for economic stabilization and revival. Gladly that the IMF has approved the next tranche for Pakistan's EFF, the program. So this is all looking good. Pakistan has been on the journey or the trajectory for stabilization, for coming out of this insolvent and the boom bust cycle that Pakistan faces. So at this point, economic diplomacy should have been at the forefront, and the path that we were on was focusing and strategizing over how we can build better trade relationships, especially within the region, And historically speaking, Pakistan has been very open to trade with India as well. But given the animosity, it seems unlikely. We have suspended ties right now. So water diplomacy can also become part of the agenda now, and that does not need to focus on India, but it needs to focus on the region and international community as well. Pakistan is now, like we discussed, at this position where it has the legitimacy and the credibility to have a voice in the international forums. So focusing on that, although it might seem very far-fetched at this moment, but the way forward is trade liberalization with the regional players,
Right.
including India, and which is something we cannot right now even imagine given the situation.
Right, but that begs for another program.
Yes.
To conclude your point, of course, we cannot forget water when it comes to, of course, our foreign policy as well as our military strategy. Thank you very much, Ms. Komal Kineth, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Makhdoom Babar, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Yasir Masood, for joining us in today's discussion. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.